Welcome to J is for Justice podcast. If live breaking news and following true crime is your thing, then please consider subscribing to my channel. And if you like what you see in my videos, please consider giving them a thumbs up. Good morning. Happy Thursday, everyone. Hello, Miss Nightbot. Miss Nightbot's here. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to J is for Justice. It is Thursday, June 22nd, 2023. And we are live today. We've got Summer Rue on Doggy Cam, and we've got Angie B, Mike Sanner, and Potato as your moderators, and Robin. We cannot forget Rockin' Robin. Hello, Olive. Olive's got her bullhorn. She's like, "What's up?" I've got a live look at the rescue mission going on right now for this submersible. That's what you see live on your screen, is a live stream of the rescue efforts right now. And I guess they continued hearing more banging, so we're kind of waiting to see what happens with that. Kelly Barrison, good morning, Jay. I hope your pups received their present. Kelly, are you the one that sent the milk and cookies? If so, yes, and thank you. Good morning, Suzanne. I saw a lot of you last night in Patreon. Suzanne was there. Mike Sanner was there. Potato. And we went over the Corey Richins bail hearing. Dude, there's a lot to that. I think he might be a little jealous, but I think we can explain it to him, Jackie, and talk him down. Hello, Cleta Newbie. Angie B, I know. Angie says, this is so sad. I think they're deceased by now, but you never know. Good Thursday morning to you, Leslie Densley Watkins. Yay, Kelly. Yes, they love it. Each cookie squeaks. They freaking love it. So Summer Lou thanks you. Let me see if I can adjust this. She keeps moving on me. She thanks you. And Emmy was our star last night in Patreon. Hey, Jeff H. Good day. Good day to you. Oh, I really appreciate you too, Kelly. Thank you. Thank you, Kelly B. That's really nice of you. And you guys probably can't even read that chat box. Let me get rid of that. Potato, how are you? I feel like I haven't talked to you in forever. No, I think Elon Musk said something else, Leslie. He said that he has not supplied them with Starlink, is what I read. That he tweeted, that Elon Musk has tweeted that he did not, that's a psyop, that he did not provide them with satellite internet. And he said that there couldn't be satellite internet down in the bottom of the ocean. Good morning, Diana. Punani. I'm so glad you guys are all here today. No worries if you missed the Patreon. I am editing that video and we're going to do a premiere for it. So we're going to talk about Corey Richins here as well. Hello, Cami Q. Good morning. And you pronounced my last name correctly. You're the best. That's probably the first thing I've pronounced correctly, and it'll probably be the last. Just saying. Okay, we're going to talk about Brian Kohberger. We're going to keep our eye on this submersible, see what happens with that. But they don't know. There's so many sounds. Hey, Jammers, good morning. There's so many sounds in the ocean. It could be anything, honestly. So we're going to talk about Kohberger, and it's not going to be anything groundbreaking, but we are going to go back in time and revisit some things that maybe we didn't pay too much attention to. And maybe now we can pay a little closer attention and get a little more takeaway from it. Good morning, Kristen. Marie Arnold, sorry I'm late. I was dealing with a family emergency. Well, I hope everything is okay, Marie. We would totally understand if you couldn't make it. Family first, always. I hope everything's okay. Jackie says, I feel so bad for them kids and his siblings. Yeah, it's really sad, but it's like anything else, in my opinion. Like, you do something dangerous, you're taking a huge risk. But do you guys think that, as far as this submersible goes, do you guys think that they could have, like, somehow gotten a cable that long? I mean, it's like 2.5 miles. Do you think they could have gotten a cable that was long enough to kind of hook onto it? Mm-hmm. Mike says that anyone in charge of a vessel should know Morse code and could use that instead of plain bangs. Yeah. I don't know. It could be anything down there making those noises. When you hear the ocean sounds at the bottom, it is eerie. Hey, Lori M. Love you too, girl. I haven't seen you in a while. Thanks for stopping in. So we're going to be revisiting some of Kohberger's past things that have come out. The first thing we're going to look at is an ex-student of his that did an interview from his house back at his parents' when he went back for Thanksgiving. So let's head over to the boob tube. And let's get me up here. Hello. And let's get our screen going here. So we're going to watch this ex-student talk about Kohberger. And this is a weird interview only because the kid, you can't hear the questions he's being asked. It's like the reporter or whoever produced this forgot to put what they were asking him in. So I just kind of cut out that awkward silence. So it's strictly going to be him answering questions that we don't know what they are. So let's get into this. Right meow. Wait. It would be really nice if we had audio.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I mean, I was, just like sleeping here on the couch in my parents' house, and I woke up to all these tweets that were like, "Oh, they got the guy." And of course, this has been something that everyone in Pullman has been following, everyone in the whole Pullman Moscow area. And so, I look on my phone and I see the guy's name and I see the picture and I'm thinking, that looks a lot like my TA who's also named Brian, but that would be crazy. And so I went and I checked my email,
Yikes.
to see the emails I'd had with him and the name matched and everything. And yeah, it was just like totally jarring, totally shocking to realize that this person that had been, kind of grading my papers was, allegedly this like horrible murderer. Yeah, no, entirely. All our interactions came in the form of the class and not even like, office hours. Like it was all within the confines of a lecture hall. He was pretty strict as far as grading goes. When he came into class, he was very, not super mentally present. He would stand up at the front, look at the ground. He had a lot of like boilerplate responses he would give people rather than, maybe something he had thought up on the spot. It seemed like he would be, he'd come in knowing what he was going to say to like most interactions. And then when he would grade your papers, he would be grading you on what he ended up calling like a higher standard. But what it really felt like to us was he was grading us like he would have graded himself as a PhD student. And so that was just kind of like, we were all annoyed by him. And so I knew his name, I knew like, oh, T.A. Bryan, like he's kind of, he sucks at this. Like he's grading us too harshly. And that was
T.A. Bryan. They didn't like him. They didn't think the students don't sound like they really liked Bryan. He sounded awkward. He wasn't a cool TA.
like an annoyance, but obviously
He's
beyond that, we
annoying.
just thought he was a little weird and kind of, a bad grader. Yeah. He actually only left me good comments, which is just kind of silly. Like the only ones I could send in were nice ones, but for most people, he was being pretty harsh in the comments. I just, for whatever reason, he was being pretty good to me.
Okay, so I think the question was, do you have any, can you send over any of his comments on your papers? The press.
Yeah, actually, we had, our professor was big on the idea that like, if we're all going to be attorneys someday, then we have to know how to argue our case. And so he scheduled a day where everyone, came in ready to argue to get their grades up, and he brought in Bryan and he was like, all right, go at him. And he had Bryan stand up and everyone was, like a few people were on his side because they wanted to keep their high grades and not like have questions be cut out or whatever. But for the most part, it was like, half of a 150 person class just asking him all these real critical questions and he would answer. And he'd actually, he tried pretty hard to defend himself, which was the kind of thing that our professor loved. He wanted the like courtroom environment. And so, so there was just a period of class where we were all sort of arguing about this. It wasn't like yelling or anything, but it was certainly conflict, Yeah, we just, it would have been.
Okay, so it sounds like the professor brought Bryan in to be argumentative with the students in a courtroom level setting. So Bryan must really be full of himself since his professor thought that he was a good one to bring in to argue and debate with these kids.
And about a month before winter break when like the murders happened, and we didn't obviously build our framework for this around that because we had no reason to connect him to that, at the time, but definitely around then, he started grading everybody just 100s, not like you pretty much, if you turned something in, you were getting high marks, and he stopped leaving notes. It was just, he seemed preoccupied is what I would have said at the time. And now obviously he seems like he was probably pretty preoccupied, but it was, it was much easier. You turn in whatever you wanted pretty much. And he was just grading them up and sending them back. Like,
so he was no longer able to focus on his TA job is what it sounds like. It sounds like he was able to focus, critique their papers, put his thoughts together. Yeah, Esperanza says being good at debate will serve him well in court. To be fair, I agree with you. And I think that's why he is feeling so confident arguing every little thing, though. I think that could be part of it. Good morning, Sandra Stevens.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. He probably, that I saw, he was always a little bit spotty on whether or not he'd come to class because he had, whatever PhD stuff over the top of it. But the couple times that he did come after or around that time period, I remember him, he had like a little bit more facial hair, just like stubble, but definitely less like well kept than he was. And he was a little quieter. He didn't, he used to stand up at the start of class and like talk about some stuff sometimes. And this time he didn't really do that at all. He was definitely, I think, like the previous like mental preoccupation that we had been noticing where it was like, he didn't really want to be there. That was at like an all-time high. And he just, didn't look like he was doing great.
It was definitely
okay. So he looked like he had checked out is what I'm gathering. So, I mean, definitely this kid sounds like he's being fair in my opinion. You guys let me know what you think. He doesn't sound like he's embellishing. He doesn't really even seem overly excited to like talk to the media. He just seems like he's being pretty factual, and fair. He said like at the time I would have thought he was just preoccupied, but now to find out he was really preoccupied. And then just noticing subtle changes like the stubble. Not necessarily, oh, God, he looked disheveled. He looked like Ted Kaczynski when they pulled him out of the Montana woods. No, he's like, he had a little more stubble. He was a little more disconnected. But I think all in all, I liked this kid's interview because I thought it gave us a fair perspective of Brian's demeanor. And I think Brian's demeanor can be well said by this guy as focused. And then once the murders occurred, unfocused. But can that easily be explained away that, hey, I was shook at the fact that this happened in the next town over. You know, I frequented Moscow. I didn't act the same because I was actually, you know, put off by it. I mean, yes, you can explain those behaviors, but you can't explain layers upon layers of things that add up. You know, that's how they come to a circumstantial case can lead to a conviction based on all these different variables that put together a whole picture. And I think that this kid puts a really good, clear, fair picture together of what he observed before and after the murders with his TA, Brian. And quite frankly, it doesn't seem like Brian was really a likable guy. I mean, considering what we've heard from this guy and what we heard from like the Tinder girl, which I believe the Tinder girl. Good morning, Meg P. And I believe the Tinder girl. And then the one girl said, he texted me and said I had good birthing hips. I just don't feel like this guy is really socially available. Like, I just feel like he's really awkward. And when he does try to be social, he's over the top. So it comes across weird and uncomfortable to the regular person. That's my opinion only. But that's just kind of what I put together from it. So the next thing is just going to be a comment from Kathy Mabutt. Kissa Mabutta.
Like he was doing great.
It was definitely a knife. It would seem like if there was more than one, it was very similar, if not just the same one for all of them.
Okay, so that is going to put to bed these people that are saying machetes and all this bullshit. She's saying, good morning, Mary P. She's saying if there is another knife involved in this crime, that it would be the same knife. So if there was more than one weapon, and we don't know if they recovered the murder weapon in Pennsylvania. We don't know that yet. We know they collected a knife because that's all it said was knife. So we know they collected a knife. We don't know if it's the knife, but she's saying, you know what? If there's another weapon, it's the same.
One for all of them.
And now this I had never seen before. I had seen that there was a plane circling, but look at this, you guys. This is just going to be a hodgepodge of things that I wanted to look at again. This is the plane on the radar circling the house in Pennsylvania the night that Brian was arrested. This started on Thursday, December 29th. And this started even before 10 p.m. Eastern. Okay. They were circling this house starting at about 9 p.m., I think, 8 or 9 p.m. And they didn't raid it until 1. $1:00. So let's watch how this plane circled over time. Literally at like 4,500 feet. Isn't that crazy? Like, just in case he took off? Like,
what?
they circled his house for a while, guys. See, now we're at 12:10 a.m. 12:20 they take off. 12:20 they take off. See that? They started circling well before 9, or right around 9 maybe. And I don't know when this Mabbit made this comment. This is something I had in my files that I never deleted. I mean, this starts at 10, something like 10:10. Now we're at 10:40. 11 o'clock. 11:15. 11:30. And it keeps going. 11:50. It's going to hit midnight now, and then it takes off. Shoop. 11:20 or 12:20. Oh, that's that creepy voice. So 12:20 a.m. it takes off, but it was there for a good 4 or 5 hours circling. I thought that was super interesting. And that's pretty low, Aunt Barb. Jammer says if he wasn't paranoid before, that would surely make him notice. So that's what I was going to say. Would you hear, like, I think it's hilarious because he would definitely hear a plane circling for that many hours, right? So it's brilliant because he probably heard it, and that's probably why he had gloves on and he was separating shit because he was like, oh my gosh, I've got to get. No, I don't know if this is even normal for a SWAT. What I'm saying is he would have heard it and been spooked for a good 4 or 5 hours. So they're like, okay, let's see what he does. Maybe, when he hears this plane circling and gets spooked, let's see if he tries to leave. Because if he tried to leave, then they could arrest him when he tries to leave, right? But he didn't try to leave. Yes, this is in PA. Mm-hmm. Yep. But they went in at 1 o'clock. So they left there at 12:20 and then they went in at 1 o'clock. Oh, I'm sure he knows how to look up flight patterns. Yes, good thought, Robin. Robin says, I'm sure he knows the apps to look up flight patterns. Sure. I mean, if we do, he does. So you can see right there, it says Effort, Pennsylvania, Albright, and then it's circled around his house. Yeah, to spook him out. Wouldn't that be crazy? Like, imagine you're him. And around 9 p.m. at night, you start hearing over and over your house. And then your parents start questioning it. Like, why is that plane circling our house? Right? Why is that plane circling our house? And then you see your brother put on gloves and start separating his stuff. I mean, they're going to be able to say like, hey, we put this plane up and within, 4 hours, he started doing this. He was actually in his underwear, bagging up his stuff. And to see what he would do. I mean, imagine hearing that for 4 hours. And if you're paranoid already, you might just strip down to your underwear and want to get rid of all your clothes and shit. Robin says, not to mention things like the Ring or the Nextdoor apps. The neighbors would be all talking about this plane circling overhead for hours. Allie79, he was not very speedy with his Ziploc baggies since he was caught glove-handed sorting his trash like it's Pokemon cards. Well, right. I mean, but isn't that kind of funny if you think about it? I know it started at least by 9 something, but my little video here, I'm going to play it one more time, starts at 10:23. I think I found this on Twitter. No, it was 1 a.m. You have to look on the actual warrant. That's where the time is. This starts at 10:23. Ew, Robin. I think they were Hanes briefs because remember they took them. They were on his bod. So remember it was what he was wearing was listed in the warrant, and he was wearing black boxer briefs. Trina Kirk, sorry. It will be interesting to see what he puts in the neighbor's garbage. I agree with you, Trina.
The investigation into...
Okay, let's get into major Creepburger news now. We're going to go back to Twitter now. TikTok. TikTok. This is the user, Josco1972. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe this user exists any longer. I believe it was up for a few days after he was arrested, and then it was taken down. The interesting thing is that videos continued to pop up after Creepburger's arrest. And I know on TikTok, you can actually schedule videos. So you can upload a whole bunch, and you can schedule them to be released at certain times. And it's very likely that this was Brian and he did that. I don't know about this voice anymore because we've heard Brian talk a little bit, but I haven't listened to this in a very long time. So I wanted to listen to it again. And I wanted you guys to pay close attention because whoever this is, they show you news clips, and I think they show you certain scenes at certain times on purpose that it correlates with what they're talking about. So if you pay attention closely to what he's saying versus what he's showing, let's talk about it. They want to talk about it too.
The investigation into the quadruple homicide in Idaho. I don't want to be any more specific than that because I don't want to put anybody in a challenging or contentious situation regarding their continued employment. And I will say what I'm about to tell you is secondhand, but it is from what I believe to be...
Okay, so I just had a thought. Sorry, I know I do this and it's probably annoying, but when these thoughts pop in my head, I gotta say it now. The way that he says, I wouldn't want to compromise anyone's employment. Do you think that he was trying to appear that maybe he was a cop or he was getting this information from a cop and it's accurate? And that way, like one of the cops would be like, hey, who's leaking? Who's leaking this stuff? He could have wanted to create doubt among the police themselves to think that one of them was leaking this accurate information.
The investigation into the quadruple homicide in Idaho. I don't want to be any more specific than that because I don't want to put anybody in a challenging or contentious situation regarding their continued employment. And I will say what I'm about to tell you is secondhand, but it is from what I believe to be a very reliable source. Again,
I feel like he's trying to sound like Captain Lanier almost, because he kind of is changing the way he talks a little bit, and he's trying to implement put doubt in the cops' heads, like someone's leaking information, so that they're looking at each other going, who's leaking this? And that their inner team kind of starts to fall apart. He's trying to create doubt within the investigators themselves, within law enforcement, I think.
What I'm about to tell you is secondhand, but it is from what I believe to be a very reliable source. Again, this can only be considered a rumor as I don't have firsthand knowledge. I never planned on posting any of this information out of respect for the victims' families. However, now that one of the victims' fathers has released some of the gruesome details himself, I'd like to share some of the investigation.
Listen how he says, I'd like to share an almost excitement. An excitement.
Again, this can only be considered a rumor as I don't have firsthand knowledge. I never planned on posting any of this information out of respect for the victims' families. However, now that one of the victims' fathers has released some of the gruesome details himself, I'd like to share some of the investigative theory. As you know, the two women were found in the same bed, but with similar wounds. That's what's being reported. That's not exactly 100% true, at least in regard to the fact that they hadn't fallen to sleep in the same bed. One of the victim's wounds were deep gouges that were delivered with extremely aggressive force, so much so that the victim's liver and lungs were destroyed. Here's the theory that's happening. They definitely think it was a man because of the force of the wounds. The person must have been very strong. They think the man came into the room after doing what they did on the second floor. They went upstairs. The person cleanly and quietly unalived the first victim. The second victim awoke and tried to run. They believe that the man possibly grabbed her, and she screamed loudly.
Sorry, the garbage man was here and my dog was going crazy. So did you guys pay attention to who he showed, what he showed, when he said it? He's telling a story here, and I believe this was a message for police. I believe this was a message for police from Brian. Yes, Robin, I do believe this is Brian. That is only my opinion. I know people disagree with that. I just don't see anybody else who would have a motive to do this.
The investigation into the quadruple homicide in Idaho. I don't want to be any more specific than that because
yes, this was very early on, Diana HB, really early on. I believe this was when Steve G initially went on Good Morning America. So let me look and see if I can find the date that he initially went on Good Morning America. Just to see if I can find it really fast. It looks like November 29th. Yep. This is the video right here. I'll show you. I will show you. So November 29th, right after that was this video made. We didn't know any of these details either. But I just want to show you November 29th is the same day. See, there's that reporter he showed. And Steve G. It's the same day. It's 6 months ago. Good morning, Johnny. I do think this is Brian. I do. It's creepy as hell, but okay, let's listen to it again because these details are very specific. Look at her face. All right.
I don't want to put anybody in a challenging or contentious situation regarding their continued employment. And I will say what I'm about to tell you is secondhand, but it is from what I believe to be a very reliable source. Again, this can only be considered a rumor as I don't have firsthand knowledge. I never planned on posting any of this information out of respect for the victims' families. However, now that one of the victims' fathers has released some of the gruesome details himself, I'd like to share some.
So, yeah, it sounds like he was almost excited that Kaylee's dad came out and gave some of the gruesome details. Like he wanted to hear those details.
The investigative theory. As you know, the two women were found in the same bed, but with similar.
Okay, and while he says the two women were found in the same bed, he's showing the director of the Idaho State Police, the operations director, talking. This is important.
Wounds, that's what's being reported. That's not exactly 100% true. At least.
So he's saying they're not reporting the right stuff. This is so Brian-like to have to set the record straight. They're not reporting the right stuff, so I need to find a way to get the real story out there, because they're taking away my story. They're taking away what I did.
Two women were found in the same bed, but with similar wounds. That's what's being reported. That's not exactly 100% true. At least in regard to the fact that they hadn't fallen to sleep in the same bed. One of the victim's wounds were deep gouges that were delivered with extremely aggressive force. So much so that...
Okay, so they hadn't fallen asleep in the same bed, he says. Now, I can't.
Wounds, that's what's being reported. That's not exactly 100% true. At least in regard to the fact that they hadn't fallen to sleep in the same bed.
They hadn't fallen asleep in the same bed. So if you recall, when we zoomed in the other day on the Kaylee's bedroom, and it looked like there was a bed in there that was slept in, that the covers were, I know she agrees, but it looked like there was a bed that had been slept in, and the covers and the comforter were, kind of pulled back like someone hopped out of bed. So that makes sense. Did Kaylee go to sleep in her room and then hear something? Let's see what this lunatic says.
Fallen to sleep in the same bed. One of the victim's wounds were deep gouges that were delivered with extremely aggressive force. So much so that the victim's liver and lungs were destroyed. You
hear that? And he's saying too, like, oh, they're saying they had similar wounds. That's not correct.
The theory that's happening. They definitely think it was a man because of the force of the wounds. The person must have been very strong.
Oh, and he probably loved that too. The person must have been very strong. So they're trying to stroke his ego. When they say that, it had to have been someone very strong. They're trying to stroke his ego because they know whoever did this is a narcissist. And narcissists love their egos rubbed, right? They love that, stroke their ego. And that's what they do. They put out things like that to stroke their egos to get them to make moves. And perhaps Steve G coming out with those horrific details and couple that with stroking his ego, he may make a move and come out of the woodwork. And it seems like maybe he did. Good morning, Brandywine. Yes, Jammer says they want him to talk about himself. Yep. And he is. They said the person must have been strong. That's the first thing he says. The suspect was strong. It was a man and they were strong. Because I think this is the only thing in his life that probably ever made him feel powerful.
So that the victim's liver and lungs were destroyed. Here's the theory that's happening.
This is the theory.
They definitely think it was a man because of the force of the wounds. The person must have been very strong. They think the man came into the room after doing what they did on the second floor. They went upstairs. The person cleanly and quietly.
They have never, ever said, oh my God, this gives me the chills. They never said that they were on the second floor and the person went up to the third floor. We've never heard that theory. Like, we've never known how it all went down, But now look at where he has a clip of Steve G placing memorial flowers in his house. You have to really correlate these clips that he plays, and it coordinates just so with what he's showing. It's creepy. Let's go back just a few seconds. And there's poor Murphy and Kaylee. Clip of that. Just watch carefully what he says and what he shows.
They hadn't fallen to sleep in the same bed. One of the victim's wounds were deep gouges that were delivered with extremely aggressive force, so much so that the victim's liver and lungs were destroyed. Here's the theory that's happening. They definitely think it was a man because of the force of the wounds. The person must have been very strong. They think the man came into the room after doing what they did on the second floor. They went upstairs.
And he shows Murphy. They went upstairs and they show Murphy.
The person cleanly and quietly unalived the first victim.
Then he shows the Moscow police. Do you get it? See the signs? He's showing Moscow police because he cleanly and quietly unalived these victims. And he's showing the Moscow police because, Moscow police, joke's on you. You were right outside and you couldn't stop me. That's my takeaway, because I think this dude has a sick, warped, twisted mind.
The person cleanly and quietly unalived the first victim. The second victim awoke and tried to run.
Victim awoke. He shows Kaylee. Okay. He unalived the first victim. Then he says the second victim awoke, and he shows Kaylee.
Unalived the first victim. The second victim awoke and tried to run. The man, they believe that the man...
Okay, so the first victim was Kaylee, is what I'm getting from this. Right? Unalive the first victim. The second victim tried to run. So from what I'm gathering from this is that he's saying, I unalived Kaylee. And when I unalived Kaylee, Maddie tried to run.
Unalived the first victim. The second victim awoke and tried to run. The man, they believe that the man possibly grabbed.
Then he shows her dad when saying the man. And almost insinuating, hey, look at this guy. Take a look at him. And making it sound like he knows law enforcement, right? I'm getting this secondhand from L.E. and then he shows Steve G. I mean, this guy is shittier than I could have ever imagined. He's sitting here talking about how her body was destroyed, and then he shows her dad when he says, yeah, the guy we left, when he's referring to the killer. If you guys don't see that this guy has a sick, warped mind by now, I don't know what else to say, because it is sick.
Unalived the first victim. The second victim awoke and tried to run. The man, they believe that the man possibly grabbed her, and she screamed loudly. She screamed loudly.
All right, so there's the Moscow Police Department again. He's showing Moscow Police again. Do you remember the scream in the body cam? Did we all hear a scream? Everybody went wild. Everybody went wild about the scream. He's confirming the scream in here. And he's showing the Moscow police being outside when that scream occurred. That tells me he was in there before 4 a.m. because the scream occurred at 3. And look how he shows Steve G. It's sick. He's talking about this dude's daughter, her body being destroyed, her being the first victim, showing her dog, her beloved Murphy. And claiming that this info comes from LE.
Possibly grabbed her, and she screamed loudly.
Okay, so here's the reflection in the laptop of the person who's talking. All right. This is straight. Let me see if I can make it just a little bit bigger. I don't know if it's going to help, but you can kind of see the guy who's doing this in here, in this reflection. And this is like him recording his laptop, and this is the reflection in the MacBook. It's clearly a MacBook. You can't really make out, any facial features or anything like that, but you certainly can see the outline of the body, and then you can see behind him, and we examined this very, very early on, and it looked to be that he was in the lab of the Criminal Justice Department. It's what it appeared to look like. That he was sitting at the table with his laptop in front of the lab computer. Pandora's Karma. So I pulled up the traffic stop and played it simultaneously while Jay is playing the video. Guys, the voice and the way he pronounces some letters is eerily same. I think he's trying to emulate Captain Lanier as well. So let me find a thing of Captain Lanier, because I think he's trying to sound like Lanier. That's who he reminds me of. The way he goes through his nose. You'll see what I mean. Let's see. Moscow Police Press Conference. November. Because I know Lanier talks in that, and he talks very clear in this one. So I want you to just pay attention to how Lanier talks and think about how this person is trying to sound. I don't think this is the right dang one. I need the one where they have the curtain behind them. It's not that one. Here he is. Okay. All right, let's take a listen to Lanier and how he speaks for a second. Let's see if we can find any similarities to his voice and how he uses his words. Because he reminds me a little bit of Lanier, because at first I was like, whoa, that's creepy. I'm like, that better not be one of the cops. But I think that's what he wanted us to hear.
It's been very hard for members of the community, and it's been equally difficult for our officers and for the investigators. We will continue to put all of our resources towards investigating
they definitely
and
think
bringing
it was
this
a
to a
man.
resolution. Here's what we've determined so far. On the evening of November 12th, Kaylee Gonsalves and Madison Morgan were at a local bar and were later at a food truck in downtown Moscow. They arrived home at approximately 1:45 a.m. on the morning of November 13th. Ethan Chapin.
Okay, now let's listen to this Josco character again.
Because of the force of the...
All right, let's listen to how he words shit.
Again, this can only be considered a rumor, as I don't have firsthand knowledge. I never planned on posting any of this information out of respect for the victims' families. However, now that one of the victim's
Sounds
fathers
just
has
like him.
released some of the gruesome details himself, I'd like to share some of the investigative theory. As you know, the two women were found in the same bed, but
As you know.
Xana Kernodle were at the Sigma Chi house before also arriving home at approximately 1:45 a.m. Two surviving roommates were also out in the community, and they returned home at approximately 1 a.m. and did not wake up until later.
Listen
that
how he
morning.
breathes.
On the
He's trying to emulate Captain Lanier. Now let's listen to BK in the traffic stop.
Yeah, where I'm from Pennsylvania, we actually don't have like crosswalks.
Oh,
So even if you're kind of slightly, there's a little bit more leeway as well. Like there are a few lines. Like there's one white line and there's another one in front. Like there's like a certain margin from which you can actually kind of put your vehicle.
with similar wounds, that's what's being reported. That's not exactly 100% true, at least in regard to the fact that they hadn't fallen to sleep in the same bed. One of the victim's wounds were deep gouges that were delivered with extremely aggressive force.
Place your vehicle.
Yeah, so I know laws vary state to state, but
Because someone had stopped.
Oh, there he is with those. Someone
what
had
you just did,
stopped.
right, is like you're sitting in the intersection and
Here we go. Yeah, Josco was back in December.
then you're blocking, so.
Yeah, there was a little bit of confusion with speeding because someone had stopped. I wasn't sure what they were doing, and then they put on their light to turn. So I thought that maybe they were letting me go through.
Oh.
So
you
much
see that?
so that
No.
victims' liver and
Yeah,
lungs
like
were
right before
destroyed.
I made the turn, there was someone
Here's
who
the theory
made a
that's
right.
happened.
They didn't have their signal on, so I wasn't sure if they were just waiting.
Yeah, so I would just advise just don't enter the intersection until you can go, so you don't get stuck. Let's see.
But in that situation, the best thing to do then would be back up.
What do you guys think?
They definitely think it was a man because of the force of the wounds. The person must have been very strong. They think the man came into the room after doing what they did on the second floor. They went upstairs. The person cleanly and quietly unalived the first victim. The second victim awoke and tried to run. They believe that the man possibly grabbed her, and she screamed loudly.
All right, let's go to the very beginning of this for a sec.
The investigation into the quadruple homicide in Idaho. I don't want to be any more specific than that because I don't want to put anybody in a challenging or contentious situation regarding their continued employment.
That's Josco. This is Lanier.
Of November 13th at 11:58 a.m., a 911 call was placed to the Whitcomb Dispatch Center.
And then this is the traffic stop with BK.
I wasn't sure what they were doing, and then they put on their light to turn. So I thought that maybe they were letting me go through.
Oh.
Did you see that?
No.
She's like, nope. No, it's not Lanier. I think he's trying to sound like Lanier, and he's alluding to the fact that this information came from law enforcement. And he's trying to put doubt within law enforcement themselves, thinking that there is a leak, someone leaking this information and possibly screwing up their investigation. So real quick, here is BK again, and then we'll play Josco one more time.
So it's another ticketable offense. So you're not supposed to, and then you're blocking.
What they were doing, and then they put on their light to turn. So I thought that maybe they were letting me go through.
Oh.
Did you see that?
No.
Yeah, like right before I made the turn, there was someone who like made a right. They didn't have their their signal on, so I wasn't sure if they were just waiting.
Yeah, so I would just advise.
All right, so that's a clip of the traffic stop. Now let's listen to this again.
And I will say what I'm about to tell you is secondhand, but it is from what I believe to be a very reliable source. Again, this can only be considered a rumor, as I don't have firsthand knowledge. I never planned on posting any of this information out of respect for the victims' families. However, now that one of the victims' fathers has released some of the gruesome details himself, I'd like to share some of the investigative theory. As you know, the two women were found in the same bed, but with similar wounds. That's what's being reported.
I'm just going to say right now, it's not linear, so we're not going to even start that rumor in here. So let's just put that baby to bed right now. None of these cops did this, okay? Lanier is not a suspect. Lanier didn't do nothing. This is clearly either a really sick person or it's a really sick person that's BK. It's not freaking Lanier. So we're not going to do that. What I'm saying is he's watched every press conference. He can study how they talk and try to create doubt within investigators themselves by making them wonder who has this information, because only law enforcement and the perp would have some of this information. That's why they don't give us everything in a press conference when you guys think that they're hiding something. What they're hiding is that the fact that he did this, and this is probably something they can use against him. If they can prove this was Brian, this would be something they could use against him, because we never put out some of this information. But he got excited when Steve G came out and talked about how horrific the wounds were. He couldn't help his sick self.
Exactly 100% true, at least in regard to the fact that they hadn't fallen to sleep in the same bed. One of the victim's wounds were deep gouges that were delivered with extremely aggressive force, so much so that the victim's liver and lungs were destroyed. Here's the theory that's happening. They definitely think it was a man because of the force of the wounds. The person must have been very strong. They think the man came into the room after doing what they did on the second floor. They went upstairs. The person cleanly and quietly unalived the first victim. The second victim awoke and tried to run. They believe that the man possibly grabbed her, and she screamed loudly.
All right, so there's a comparison of the reflection. And no, Allie, I know what creator you're talking about, and he does sound like this, but he's been on camera, and it's definitely not this person. Lead with love. I like that you note how his voice gets excited in spite of himself. Yeah, he could not control himself. No, it's definitely not anybody in the Rodney case. This is definitely, I mean, you can see his reflection. You can see the ear. You can see the shape of the head. In the other picture, you could see the shoulder. And you know what? I didn't think about the traffic stop either, Diana. And I want to thank you for bringing that up, because I was like, man, we've only heard him say a few words here and there, but good call. But odds, I don't think that he's got anything to do with that. At least I hope not.
How you doing? How y'all doing?
Okay, so, this is going to get good. I need to go grab a cup of coffee really quick. If you guys can stand by for like 2 seconds. I got to take a little restroom break and get some hot coffee, and then we're going to go through the body cam of Brian and his dad. I have managed to make the audio better, and we can kind of make out what Brian says to the cop. So let's see if we can make out what he says about the WSU thing, about the SWAT, and we'll do that in just 2 seconds. So I'm going to go back. We will keep this up on the screen so you guys can look at it, and I'll be right back. I'm going to run, Combat Vet. Good morning. Need my mug. I'm back. Hello, Paper Chaser. Good morning. I was just getting a refill on my coffee. And would you guys believe I drank a whole pot already? I could only get a half a cup. I'm like, oh my God, no wonder I'm like, zing. Okay. You highlight your name like that when you get to be a rock star on YouTube. And if you guys subscribe to my channel and get me to 100,000, I think maybe I can be a hot item like Paper Chaser one day. Right, Paper Chaser? Oh, yeah. Beyond cruel. It's beyond cruel. It's sick. I really feel like he's got a really sick mind. There. Sorry, I don't know why that was so large. That's what she said. Can you deny that ear, guys? Come on. Y'all always think I'm crazy. And then when you guys calm down, you're like, oh, maybe she's right. You are. You're a rock star with the gray name and your check mark. I want a check mark. No, Pink Banjo, you are a hot item, Jay. No, I'm not. Sizzling hot. Oh, yeah.
La 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 la.
Sure.
I can't believe Mandy Joe's missing this. Where is she? What up, J. Crew? Hey, Patrick Forsyth. Hey, Jessica. Oh, this is from Josco 1972. Do you guys want to hear Josco one more time before we move on to the body cam? He likes animals, says Suzanne. Okay, Suzanne Weir, he likes animals better than people because the animals have to just sit there and listen to him go on and on and on. We're going to listen to Josco really quick, and then we think that a lot of us here think that Josco is BK. So let's listen to Josco, then we're going to go over the body cam of Brian and Daddy-O. I do not, Kaleidohope. Kaleidohope wants to know, hey, Jay, do you have the audio from Brian and the lady that cuts his hair? I do not. I'm not sure I've even heard that.
The investigation into the quadruple homicide in Idaho. I don't want to be any more specific than that because I don't want to put anybody in a challenging or contentious situation regarding their continued employment.
So just to recap, I think that's where he's trying to allude that it's law enforcement. Yeah, he didn't like Steve G being the alpha, did he?
What I'm about to tell you is secondhand, but it is from what I believe to be a very reliable source. Again, this can only be considered a rumor as I don't have firsthand knowledge. I never planned on posting any of this information out of respect for the victims' families. However, now that one of the victim's fathers has released some of the gruesome
Here's the
details
excitement.
himself, I'd like to share some of the investigative theory. As you know, the two
Potato,
women-
when he says, I'd like to share, I almost see him in that body cam where he shows his teeth. You know, your favorite part, Potato? Where he says, there. And you love that. You love that scene. Do you remember that one? I think that gave you the willies.
were found in the same bed, but with similar wounds. That's what's being reported. That's not exactly 100% true, at least in regard to the fact that they hadn't fallen to sleep in the same bed. One of the victim's wounds were deep gouges that were delivered with extremely aggressive force, so much so that the victim's liver and lungs were destroyed. Here's the theory that's happening. They definitely think it was a man because of the force of the wounds. The person must have been very strong. They think the man came into the room after doing what they did on the second floor. They went upstairs. The person cleanly and quietly unalived
Cleanly
the first
and
victim.
quietly.
The second victim awoke and tried to run. They believe that the man possibly grabbed her, and she screamed loudly.
Maybe they were.
How you doing? How y'all doing today?
Yeah, like right before I made the turn, there was someone who like made a right, and they didn't have their, their signal on, so I wasn't sure if they were just waiting.
Yeah, so I would just advise.
So I think that is him, and that's my opinion. Now we're going to move on to this body cam. Now, like I said before, I kind of tried to tweak the audio so that we could hear better. There's a lot of trucks going by, but if you have headphones, please put them on, because there's definitely you can hear more in this of what they talk about with the SWAT and things like that. So let's see if we can make out a little bit more of what's said in the car here.
Good. Take a look at your driver's license real quick if I could. See, he's right up on that van, man. You right up on the back end of that van. Pulled you over for tailgating. Is this your car? Okay, cool. Where are you headed?
Well, we're coming from WSU, and we're standing early.
What's WSU?
Yeah, I go to university basically. In real estate. That's very much an incident. That is SWAT team area.
So he says, what's WSU? And he says, it's a university basically. But watch how his face goes. This is what I noticed too, is once Dad starts talking, he's like, his face looks mad. But then when he looks at the cop, his face changes like immediately. Pay close attention to this.
What's WSU?
Yeah, I go to university basically. In real estate. That's very much an incident. That is SWAT team area.
So I don't understand where. So he says, what's WSU? And he's like, it's Washington State University, basically. And then his dad says, yeah, there was a SWAT team and everything.
See, he's right up on that van, man. You right up on the back end of that van. Pulled you over for tailgating. Is this your car? Okay, cool. Where are you headed?
Well, we're coming from WSU, and we're standing early.
What's WSU?
Yeah, I go to university basically. In real estate. That's very much an incident. That is SWAT team area.
So I'm having a hard time hearing you because of the traffic. So you're coming from Washington State University?
Yeah.
And you're going where?
To get some Thai food right now.
We're going to be going to Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. we're slightly punchy. We've been driving for hours.
Hours, days.
Hours. Been driving. Well, almost a day.
Okay. And what'd you say about some SWAT team thing? Or
Yeah, there was a mass shooting and everything.
Where?
Okay, so his dad goes, yeah, there was a mass shooting and everything. And Brian goes, we don't know if there was a mass shooting. Why would he say mass shooting?
Yeah, we're slightly punchy. We've been driving for hours.
Hours, days.
Hours. Been driving. Well, almost a day.
Okay. And what'd you say about some SWAT team thing? Or
Yeah, there was a mass shooting and everything.
Where?
Okay, so he says, where at? And then he says, Washington State University. I'm trying to make out what he says here. If you guys can listen close to this part.
Where? Interesting.
Well, it's horrifying. He's supposed to be university, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So y'all work at the university there?
Okay, so he says, I got this alert on my phone. And then he's explaining how he knows about it being hours, days away. But why did they even bring that up? Look at BK's face. What's up with that? Yeah, it's about the Kohberger situation. So is he looking forward because were they following someone else? Was there somebody else? I mean, why does he keep looking forward like that? Is he just nervous? They both seem rattled to me. I don't know why, but I don't know if Dad seems rattled, but Brian certainly is rattled, but Dad seems rattled too. Yeah, this is the Brent Kohberger situation, Paper Chaser. Yep, and I think they knew beforehand. Potato, it sounds like they're saying they left WSU because of the SWAT. Oh, okay, so that's where their story's not adding up. They're making it sound like they left because the SWAT was freaking them out, but then again, they're saying it just happened this morning, and they've been on the road for hours, and then the cop corrects them and says, hours? Days. So why is Dad saying hours when it's really been days? Unless they stayed the night in Colorado and they really only had been on the road for a couple hours at that point. Punchy. We're punchy because we've been driving for days, hours. And the cop goes, days.
Oh.
We're going to be going to Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We're getting ready to go to Pennsylvania because Brian says we're going to get Thai food, and then Daddy-O says, well, we're going to get Thai, or we're going to Pennsylvania in the Pocono Mountains. And Brian's like, what the fuck, Dad? Why are you telling them where we live? Like, they're already looking for an Elantra, but I fooled them. They're not looking for my year Elantra. So shut up. Right? Is that what he's thinking?
I'm having a hard time hearing you because of the traffic. So you're coming from Washington State University?
Yeah.
And you're going where? Oh.
We're going to be going to Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We're slightly punchy. We've been driving for hours.
Hours, days.
Hours. Been driving. Well, almost a day.
Almost a day.
And what'd you say about some SWAT team thing? Or
yeah, there was a mass shooting and everything.
Where?
SWAT team got an alert on my phone.
Interesting.
Well, it's horrifying because he's supposed to be university, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So y'all work at the university there?
I actually do work there.
Oh.
PhD criminal.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I hadn't heard about that incident. Just yesterday, or?
No, this happened about an hour and a half ago. We're still wrapping it up.
About an hour and a half ago, they're still wrapping it up. They're still investigating. He says, did this incident happen yesterday? Because y'all left yesterday. You've been on the road for a day. So why'd you leave when this just happened an hour ago?
Yeah, I hadn't heard about that incident. Just yesterday, or?
No, this happened about an hour and a half ago. We're still wrapping it up. I'm not sure there's two shooters, but they did shoot somebody.
Let's see.
Oh, I'm not sure, but they did shoot somebody. And look at Brian's face. Did Brian tell him it was a mass shooting, maybe? Maybe when Brian got the alert, he lied to his dad and said it was a mass shooting versus one guy. And then he says they shot somebody. Like, how does he know all of this already? I'm so sorry, Queen. That was an accident. Fat fingers, fat fingers. I didn't mean to do that.
And then you don't know about that actually. They were there with shooting out of the window or something.
So that's all I have of that.
Okay.
But look, that was his driver's license picture, I think. Look. See that picture? Is that the creepy picture? Look, where he's gotten where he's really super skinny and looks like he's on heroin. Yeah, he's definitely hiding his hands, but he shows that cut in here too. In the very, very beginning, he has his arm showing that cut. Watch.
Good, good. Take a look at your driver's license real quick if I could. See, he's right up on that van, man. You right up on the back end of that van. Pulled you over for tailgating. Is this your car? Okay, cool. Where are you headed?
I'm just trying to see his driver's license in here if I can. It looked like that picture where he was real thin. So I don't know. Did he get a Washington license? I can't remember what was in the papers. Do you guys remember if it was a Washington license or not? Because we know he had IDs, remember? So did this even have the right name on it?
Your car? Okay.
We can't make it out, but he had IDs, so I don't know if he had IDs with someone else's name that he had been using previously or what. Jessica, what are you wowing? What's wow? Soph E. It sounds like Lanier, the police guy. Yeah, I think he's supposed to sound like Lanier. It's not Lanier. And Brian will get, yes, I agree, Suzanne. Brian will get a fair trial, more of a fair trial than a lot of people in America. Lots of crimes are committed and they don't get incredible lawyers and all the money laid down. Exactly. He's got the best situation that he could get.
Cool.
Does it look like a Washington license? No, it doesn't, Suzanne. Leslie Watkins says, Jay, I think his dad knows or helped, in my opinion. Interesting. Jessica, you think he most definitely told his dad that it was a mass shooting? And he could have held on to his PA license too. You know, if he went to get his Washington one, what if he said, oh, I don't, I lost my PA one? Then he could just have that one. They wouldn't clip it. You never know. Because if you have the right documentation to get a license, if you don't have your other license from another state, you can just use other documentation in place of that license to prove your identity and get a license in a new state. You think his father is afraid of him? I don't get that feeling at all. I don't get that feeling at all because his father piped up right away. He didn't wait for Brian to speak first or anything like that, or seem afraid to speak out of turn or anything like that. I don't think he's afraid of Brian at all. I don't get that vibe, but it could be. Just Mike's says, this stop is interesting. How and who takes control of the response to the cops' questions? Dad starts off almost guiding, talking over Brian, and then it switches after he starts slipping up, talking too much. I agree. Dad starts off, and then Brian takes over and starts talking over Dad, correcting Dad. Almost trying to cue Dad, shut up, I've got this. Not necessarily, Robin. You can still get plates. But you guys in Washington are saying it looks like a Washington license. Jammer says, here's some advice. Don't ever let your license expire while in another state. Trust me. It doesn't sound good. You guys think his dad seems clueless? Let's do a quick poll. I want to see where all of the chat stands on this. As I'm torn on that. All right, let's just do a quick yes or no. I just want to see where you guys stand. Some of you guys think that he seems to be maybe afraid. His dad seems to be kind of intimidated by Brian. Some of you guys think that the dad seems like he's nervous and guilty of something. Do you think that the dad's guilty of maybe some knowledge or more? Put your vote in now. Do you think that the dad seems guilty of something or another? Of maybe knowledge or maybe, I don't know. I think it's weird that he brought up the SWAT thing because that would be totally irrelevant when you're in Indiana. Like you're pulled over in Indiana. You left the day prior. So why are you bringing this SWAT thing up when you're you're closer to Pennsylvania than you are to WSU. I could see if they were in still in Idaho or even Colorado, bringing that up. But they left the day before this SWAT thing. So is he maybe saying, whew, I'm glad we left when we did because there's a mass shooting today. Maybe that's it. Maybe the dad is like, oh my gosh, we dodged that bullet. It's a mass shooting. Because maybe they were supposed to leave a little bit later. And maybe something spooked Brian to say, hey, we got to leave today. Maybe he really told his dad this, that morning, oh my God, good thing we left. Because maybe his dad was like, why are we leaving so soon? Or I don't know. It seemed like we're a little punchy. Like my son's rushing me. Like we're punchy. We haven't been taking our time. And why wouldn't you take your time? You have all the time in the world. It's the 15th of December. You've got 10 days until Christmas. So why the rush, you know, and we're punchy. You know, why would you be punchy? Take your time, chill. We know they had a comfort in, right? But it seems like Brian maybe had to really exaggerate this SWAT thing and mass shooting to like maybe get his dad off his back. Look, Dad, good thing we left or something like that. I don't know. Lainey thinks that his dad was trying to change the subject. So 27% of you think that he seems guilty of something. And 73% of you say no. Yes, BK did say they got an alert on the phone, but his dad said it was a mass shooting. And then Brian goes, no one said it was a mass shooting. We don't know it was a mass shooting. So it was just a really odd interaction. Do you guys want to watch it one more time? You guys want to watch Josco and then this stop one more time?
Into the quadruple homicide in Idaho. I don't want to be any more specific than that because I don't want to put anybody in a challenging or contentious situation regarding their continued employment. And I will say what I'm about to tell you is secondhand, but it is from what I believe to be a very reliable source. Again, this can only be considered a rumor as I don't have firsthand knowledge. I never planned on posting any of this information out of respect for the victims' families. However, now that one of the victims' fathers has released some of the gruesome details himself, I'd like to share some of the investigative theory.
That's a really good. Hey, that's a
in,
really good theory. Maybe they had pot. Maybe Dad smokes pot and he was a little nervous. That's why they were jumpy. It could be that. Dad certainly does not seem like he's nervous because he killed somebody. Now, let me just get that out there. She agrees. There's people outside, sorry. Maybe his dad deep down felt like something wasn't right. Could that be? Because everybody gets nervous getting pulled over. I know it creeps me out too, Robin. And Robin said, now that I've heard the traffic stop and his voice, this video creeps me out. So fucking cool says Brian and his dad are both dumb. Brian letter to dad. Ooh, what was Brian letter to dad? Yeah, did dad already see letter? I don't believe, Latte, that BK's mom wrote an editorial about anything. I think BK put those out there. I don't think his mom has anything out there. I mean, she's completely not even on social media or anything. I don't think there's anything out there on her.
Same bed, but with similar wounds. That's what's being reported. That's not exactly 100% true, at least in regard to the fact that they hadn't fallen to sleep in the same bed. One of the victim's wounds were deep gouges that were delivered with extremely aggressive force, so much so that the victim's liver and lungs were destroyed. Here's the theory that's happening. They definitely think it was a man because of the force of the wounds.
Because Brian's so strong.
Very strong. They think the man came into the room after doing what they did on the second floor. They went upstairs. The person cleanly and quietly unalived the first victim. The second victim awoke and tried to run. They believe that the man possibly grabbed her, and she screamed loudly.
Even kind of stuttered there on purpose. All right, here's the body cam again.
How you doing?
How y'all doing today? Good, good. Take a look at your driver's license real quick if I could. See, he's right up on that van, man. You right up on the back end of that van. Pulled you over for tailgating. Is this your car? Okay, cool. Where are you headed?
Well, we're coming from WSU, and we're standing early.
What's WSU?
University, basically, a real estate incident that was occurring up there. There was a shooting incident. That is SWAT team and everything. All together.
So we're okay. I'm having a hard time hearing you because of the traffic. So you're coming from Washington State University,
Yeah.
and you're going where? Oh,
We're going to be going to Pennsylvania.
oh, okay.
Yeah. So we're slightly munched because we're driving for hours.
Hours, days.
Hours to drive. Well, almost a day.
Okay. And what did you say about some SWAT team thing? Or
Yeah,
something?
there was a mass shooting and everything. We don't know if it was about-
Where?
This was all essentially that's the malady.
Interesting.
Well, it's horrifying because he's supposed to universe, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So y'all work at the university there?
I actually do work there.
Oh.
PhD in criminal
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I hadn't heard about that incident. Just yesterday, or?
This happened about an hour and a half ago. We're still wrapping it up for investigating. I'm not sure there's two shooters, but they did shoot somebody.
Let's see.
And then you don't know about that actually. They were there for shooting out of the window or something.
We don't know about that, actually. We weren't there, he says. All right, so I've got something else to pull up here. An article I found. This is really interesting, too. So this is about people that knew Kohberger and things that they had talked about. We went over Christian the other day, and we talked about, we played his interview. Now, this here repeats that. The two things he said were that they have no leads and they think it was a crime of passion. But then in this article, it goes on to say he just really liked talking to me in the hall. He would talk about his studies like forensics and stuff and criminology stuff. And at the time, you know, it just seemed like normal times. And then here is Brian's door, a picture of Brian's door. I don't know if you've ever seen this. I've never seen this myself, so I figured I would share it out with y'all. There's Brian's door. Martinez lived across the hall from Kohberger and has a vivid memory of him moving to the area in summer of 2022. He says, I quote, I met his dad in the parking lot. He just stopped and started talking to me. So we just went over the body cam. Maybe dad just likes to talk. I saw a couple of you saying that. And that probably is the reason. Mainstream media reports a lot of stuff, Latte. It's not all correct. And just because they did a Google search and found what Marianne Kohberger may or may not have written doesn't make it authentic that Marianne Kohberger wrote it. Marianne Kohberger has never spoken out. Marianne Kohberger has never even shown her face. What's up, Spot? His dad was wanting to introduce me to Brian, Christian says. And he said something. I don't remember the exact word he used to describe him, but it was something like, he has a hard time making friends, or he's kind of shy. And then we have this guy, Zach Cartwright. He got invited to Kohberger when he went to a pool party. Okay. This guy met him at a pool party, Zach Cartwright. And he said, I did notice him, and I noticed that he was kind of standing off the entire time. He wasn't very social, which I thought was kind of weird because it was a party and people were interacting. He was just kind of standoffish. He did seem kind of socially awkward and kind of hard to carry a conversation with, if I remember correctly. Kohberger acted like he was best friends with someone he hardly knew. So that same guy said that. And then here's Martinez again, and he says that he wanted to invite Kohberger to other parties and social events, but his wife told him not to. She didn't have a good feeling about him. We went over this, and she was like, no, please don't invite him. Now, this is interesting here. a standout conversation with Kohberger about DNA. Evidence with DNA was left behind at the crime scene, which was released after Kohberger's arrest. And now we know that the buccal swab from Brian Kohberger's cheek matches the minute amount of DNA that was in the button of the knife sheath, which was partially under Madison Mogen's body and under the comforter of her bed, upside down, where no blood could get into the button. A tan leather knife sheath was found next to Mogen on the bed where she and Kaylee were found dead. The Idaho State Lab later located a single source of male DNA left on the button snap of the knife sheath. It was compared to DNA recovered from the trash, and it was a near perfect match. Martinez recalled the conversation he had with his former neighbor that related to the evidence. He was talking about genealogy because I was talking about 23andMe because my sister had just done all that. And then he brought up something similar in his studies that had to do with being able to catch criminals because of their relatives' DNA, which is, I guess, how he got caught up in his mix. Willow, chill. It wasn't in the vicinity of his child, okay? They were not there. They weren't at WSU when that happened. No need to freak out. We see your comment on. The murders happened on November 13th, and Kohberger texted Martinez 11 days later on Thanksgiving, "Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family." Now, here's another quote from Martinez. He says, "It kind of made me feel bad because I was like one of the people that he made friends with. What if I could have made a difference if I had been able to meet up with him the times that I could have? Maybe that would have changed anything." So now this guy has, the regrets, guilt. And then this guy here, they say that he was indistinguishable from other college students, which we know. He didn't stand out by any means. Now, this guy, Ferrero, and Kohberger worked together on a biology project. And Ferrero received an undergraduate in criminal justice from DeSales and recalled a project that he worked on with Kohberger. And he also did a little interview. I don't know if you've seen this guy's interview. Here it is. So he basically says like he was a really nice guy. He doesn't say anything bad about him at all. But it says here, Ferrero was closely following the story of the Idaho murders and couldn't believe his former lab partner was the suspect. My reaction was exactly, I know this guy. I definitely remember that name from DeSales, but I couldn't paint the face in my mind. He said, I'm like, Brian Kohberger. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Brian Kohberger. I did a project with him in biology. What are you talking about? Neck tats? Who has neck tats? What does that mean? Hey, Mandy Joe. And who has a neck tat anyways? I don't know what you guys are talking about. Fill me in. And he wasn't very well known at school. DeSales University is a small university with less than 5,000 students. However, according to a former classmate, not many people knew Kohberger. It's a small school in a cornfield, said Ferrero. So if you go there, you know most of the people within your study, and pretty much everyone that goes to the school, and he was not known. He added DeSales is such a close-knit and heartfelt community. Like I said, everybody knows each other, and the fact that really no one knows about this guy. He went in and out. Right. I mean, who's talking about neck tats? Like, we don't judge people on tats, dude. No. No, 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 no. He looks like he has a black eye, though. He looks like he has a black eye. Isn't that weird? Doesn't he? Ferrero never thought that Kohberger was capable of murder. When Ferrero heard about Kohberger's arrest, he was stunned. At the time, I would have never said, oh, yeah, that guy would do something like this. He may have been a little odd or a little off, but other than that, you'd never expect him to be part of a quadruple homicide. I've never met anyone in my life that I've looked at and said, oh, my God, they would totally kill someone. Who thinks that about anybody? Hey, Elliot. The guy before him. I don't know what you're talking. Oh. Just because he has neck tattoos, you don't take his word for it? Get the fuck on out of here. Give me a break. I love tattoos as well. I love when people express themselves. Okay, Kohberger commuted to school and kept to himself while he studied psychology as an undergraduate at DeSales. But according to Ferrero, there wasn't anything alarming about him. It's not always the creepy guy with glasses and oily hair creeping around the corner. Right. It's sometimes just that average Joe. It's not always someone greasy.
Just based on my observations, her hair was very greasy.
It's sometimes just that average Joe that on the inside you have no idea what he looks like, but on the outside he may seem like a normal person, much like Brian Kohberger did. Ferrero has a theory about Kohberger's motives. Now that Ferrero has had time to process the fact that he knows an alleged killer, he's thought about what drove him to this point. I think he had this compulsion, this need, this necessity to do it. And he's probably always wanted to do it and finally said, fuck it, I'm going to do it. Side sleepers beware. Here's my ads in full force. Full force. Maybe he broke Brian's nose. I don't know. Ferrero believes Kohberger snapped, saying, I think he's just sick. I think that people online want to make this into a fairy tale and make it grandiose and make much more than it is. If he had done this, I think he's a sick individual that finally snapped. Now, this dude here, Dr. John Delator, says no one just snaps. There is a straw that breaks the camel's back if we want to continue to use terms like that. This certainly can happen, but the person that has been dealing with distressing emotions for a very long time has been unsuccessful in coping with them in a healthy way. Makes sense? There's still much to be learned about Kohberger, but one thing is clear. Whoever committed the crime is a mass killer. What actually happened was that he was a mass killer, Delatorre said. Whoever did this should actually be considered a mass killer, but it doesn't take away from the possibility that they are also possibly a serial killer. Now, here is his lovely professor, Catherine Ramsland, former professor, breaks down the mind of a psychopath. Both Ferrero and Kohberger took a class with renowned forensic psychologist and DeSales University professor Dr. Kathleen Ramsland, who will not comment about the suspect. I'm making no statements about Brian Kohberger and will not be interviewed for any stories that feature him, she told Law and Crime Network via email. However, she did appear on the network's podcast, Cocktails and Cocktails, a few months before the murders, where she said, have I come face to face with psychopaths? Absolutely. The coldness, the lack of remorse, definitely. Ramsland said while appearing on the podcast, some people call that evil, but we are finding that it might very well be a brain disorder. In the interview, she said, the brains of what we call primary psychopaths, who seem to be born with this brain disconnect, are definitely different. It allows them to be better predators, if that's what they choose to be. Not all psychopaths are criminals, and not all psychopaths are murderers. If they choose that, it allows them to be very effective. Better because they don't have any remorse over what they're doing. And they really can be very calculated. They tend to be very reward driven. Kohberger had no run-ins with the law. One of the reasons why the community is shocked by the news of the arrest of Kohberger is that he's had no previous legal troubles. We had no indication he was here at all. We had no indication he had any interaction with law enforcement at all. That is from the Northampton County District Attorney Terry Hauk, telling Law and Crime. After Kohberger's arrest, Hauk's team reviewed area cold cases for a link to Kohberger. When you have someone who might have serial attached to their name, you're just going to make a check-see to see if there's any connection since he had contact with the county. There was none here in Northampton. So we only know in Northampton. That's it. Former classmate and neighbor now believe police arrested the right man. So here's Martinez again, or Ferrero rather. He says, I absolutely think they got their guy just because the stars kind of align. And then Martinez says it's almost too good to be true unless this guy was miraculously set up, which is like 1 in a billion chance. No one cares enough about Brian Kohberger to set him up. They wouldn't have arrested him if they didn't have concrete evidence. If everything they're saying is true in these stories, I think he did it. Kohberger will be back in court this summer. We know that. And that is it. What are you guys thinking? Let's see what's going on with this rescue thing. Same shit. All right. So what are you guys thinking of this? Are you guys thinking that Josco... Now, let's talk about Josco for a minute. Josco, 1972. Back in the day, when we first discovered this back in December, we actually looked up Josco 1972. And it comes up as John Scott. Josco 1972. Are they still on here? Now it has a picture? What the fuck? And the videos are gone. Who is that guy? What? What is this? Watch. Found an account that might be Kohberger. See, it was Josco 1972, but it says user 34808 da 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 da. Can you guys see this? Reverse image search? What? On what? What do you mean? Oh, that guy?
Account found that might be Brian Kohberger.
Apparently. The man...
Probably at least 10 stigmatized members.
Audio sounds similar. Video posted October 24th, 22. YouTube concert video possible. You will be same green ball from video. Same sign from video. Is it BK?
Wait, now they're saying BK was at a Harry Styles concert? Wait, what? Why do they think BK was at a Harry Styles? Because Josco posted a video of Harry Styles? You can't even see this guy's face. Y'all think I'm nuts with the things I find? They never even show this guy's face. Same green boa? That's hilarious. Okay, we'll do that later. I don't want to do that live because I don't really want to know. Let's see. Josco, 1972. What's this? Unique crime obsessed. Unique true crime obsessed. What'd they find?
Hey there, to those of you interested, I don't want to put any...
Same thing. Screenshot. Same thing I had. Okay. See, this is what I found. Josco Group since 1972. This is what I think it relates to. This is what we found when we searched it the first time. I have no idea why it would be Josco in 1972.